Welcome to Vauxhall, a podcast production of Learned and Laughter. This episode of Vauxhall features a discussion on health governance with Alexander Percival SEGBEFIA. These Vauxhall discussions on governance are produced in partnership with Empowering Good Governance, also known as Egg Magazine, an online publication to be found at www.eggmagazine.net. That is www.eggmagazine.net. This episode's guest is Alexander Percival SEGBEFIA, a former Minister of Health and a lawyer by profession, who also served as Deputy Chief of Staff and Deputy Minister of Defense under the John Evans Atta Mills administration. We now join Ekem Amunulatson, the host and producer of Vauxhall, with his guest, Alexander Percival SEGBEFIA.
Let me ask another question. You mentioned the issue about tracking, and you track electronically.
Yes.
Do you see any place or strategy, or is it already in existence dealing with, one of the big things now is the whole thing about the Ghana card.
Yes.
Now, can that play any part in tracking?
Yes.
And keeping in mind at the back end, what might there be issues with privacy? Could you talk something about that?
Well, I think that Ghana has already lost the privacy battle because my SIM card on my phone, I have to register it, and it's done biometric. So at any time you will know who has sent what message if they want to trace it. The same with your biometric card, and everything you do, they will tell you soon that Ghana card is what is your ID. So it doesn't matter if you don't have a passport, and if you have your Ghana card, you exist, and this is who you are. So that is already a given. In some countries, a big brother is watching you. Mm-hmm. So definitely. So I don't think that you can pull it back, because if you want to do any business and you go to a bank, shortly they'll ask you for your Ghana card. So are you going to stop doing business because you won't take your biometric? And once they have your data, they have your data. So as far as, that's why I say it's, within the next 5 years, everybody who can be tracked, for want of a better, they will know exactly when you last put in your Ghana card, where you were. They may not track you on a day-to-day basis, but they can track your phone. Because your phone is linked to Ghana card. And once you have now gone to now they say MTN, Vodafone, all of them, you must now go and do biometric distance. So they know the SIM. And if they really want to track where you are, if you have the phone on you, they will. Even before this happened, you already know that there was technology which will allow them to know where you are. They can even put your camera on when your phone is not on. They are spyware, this thing that will go into it. And now it's official because they have now given your biometric details. You have given it. So this idea of privacy, for me, the battle is already lost. And is it good or bad? It's good if you believe that the powers that be will not misuse it. Because in this era of terrorism, money laundering, crime, it's a good way of keeping tabs on people who are suspects or known to be in this type of activity. But if it's for political watching or to actually bring somebody down, then it's not a good thing. So where do you draw the line? It's a question of what are the rules and regulations that will exist to ensure that it cannot be used or abused. And therefore, we should be able to sue and get serious compensation if it's misused.
Okay. One way, we mentioned this thing about contact tracing.
Yes.
How do you think that might work in terms of, having the Ghana card, keeping track of...
When you go now, it's linked more to the NHIA card. So the NHIA card is what is being used now for the tracking. So you go in, I'm not well, they take your NHIA card, all your data comes up. Oh, why is it good? In the old days, I'm sick, or I say I'm sick. I go to a doctor. NHIA says, you've got malaria. So we can give you malaria tablets for 1 week. Here's the medication. That afternoon, I go to another doctor. I'm sick, I have malaria. He gives me malaria tablets. Second day I go, within a week, I've got my stock of malaria tablets. I now start selling to my colleagues because I got it free, because it was on NHIA. Some people are not. People don't have the education. You can sell. This time, when you go and you put in, the diagnosis comes up, malaria, drugs given. You go in the afternoon to another place, you put your NHIA card. Oh, but you just went to this hospital this morning. You have been given drugs for malaria. You don't need any drugs. Thank you very much. That is the effect of that. Good. That's where we want to get to. So the NHIA card gives your history so that a doctor will not do a repeat prescription for you. Whereas in the past, NHIA was losing money because we were taking a lot of drugs for free and selling off the back of the NHIA. It won't happen. It shouldn't be happening, because now, when you go and you produce the NHIA card, now NHIA is going to be linked to the Ghana card. So I'm sure that it will be interchangeable. Assuming you don't have your NHIA card on you, but you took your Ghana card, it will still bring up your record because the biometrics are the same.
Okay.
So that is the idea behind it.
Okay. Let me jump to another issue. I touched upon it a little bit earlier.
Yes.
One of the things I also wanted to discuss with you is the idea of public health, but specifically with the issue with nutrition, diets. I've always, with humor behind it, say that I think a lot of Ghanaians drive to work drunk, and they come home, and before they go to bed, they're drunk. But not because they've consumed alcohol, but because of the things that they've consumed. So from anything like Hausa cocoa, that has a lot of, fermentation in it, to us eating kenke at night. I wonder to myself how that works with productivity. But for a specific case example, I think that there's some need for Ghanaians to change their nutritional lifestyles. So for example, more northern cuisine should be introduced into school communities. Because, for example, I was just speaking to my domestic partner, and my mother's from Liberia, and they eat cassava leaf. And they also eat the leaf of the sweet potato. So I asked her, would you try the cassava leaf? She said, I won't eat it because I'm not a goat. So I've always thought that there must be ways to introduce ways to improve the diet of Ghanaians. And I think that one of the best ways to do it is through school communities, by training matrons to cook some of these foods that could cook foods that would help with things like anemia, if they were eating more iron-rich food and not so much carbohydrate-based food like fufu and whatever else. So given that as a point of flight, how would you float above that information with an eagle eye and say that, being that I was a Minister of Education, this sounds, my pardon, health. How do you...
But partially education.
Yeah, how would you process
understand
some of what I've just said?
Ekem, you've raised a myriad of issues in that short, a myriad. And well-being was something we actually introduced when I was in office. Mm-hmm. We launched it, and it had to do with prevention is better than cure. Therefore, what you eat is what you are. And there are many issues that come out of it. And how we knock down our foods or not is dependent on understanding our history. In the olden days, you tend to find that you had a lot of older folk in the villages. We never used to do proper data. Our mortality rate dropped mostly due to urban issues, not village issues. And our position now is that when you take communicable diseases and non-communicable diseases, Africa is in a unique place, because in Europe and the Western world, communicable diseases are almost non-existent because of the vaccines and their healthcare. But in Africa, you have communicable and non-communicable. And at one point, it used to be very high on the communicable diseases. But non-communicable has caught up, if not surpassed. You're not having the cancers, you're having the high blood pressure, you're having the diabetes, etc. Why? And it comes down to a number of issues. Even if you want to eat healthy, what is that fruit being sprayed with in the farm? You have fertilizers which are being used to increase production. That is why in Europe, my humble opinion, once again, non-communicable diseases are very high. They have all the fruit, they have all the what, they are eating a lot of chemical as well. In the way they produce their meats, what they are feeding their cattle. Cattle are eating meat products within their grain products, etc., etc. So you do not know what you are transmitting to your body, even when you eat so-called healthily. Gone are the days when our old folks would do banchi in the backyard with some tomatoes and this thing and put it together and you are eating. You say, oh, but it was healthy. It was done in the backyard or in they'll go to farm and come back healthy. No fertilizer, they rely on the rains. And now we have introduced fertilizer and we have also introduced herbicides or things that get rid of the insecticides and whatnot in our food production. Then we have added an extra problem in Ghana. It's called galamsey. Because when the waters and the rivers are being polluted with all those chemicals they use to get the gold out of the ground, and they are not dealing with it properly, the animals that come to drink from that water that they need to drink from are taking in the chemical as well. So when they are dangling a crantier in front of you, beware. Because you do not know where that deer or this thing has been drinking its water. The water body in it, when the water goes down and the crops take it up, they are taking it with the chemical. So when you want to buy food, you have to know where you are buying it from or where it's coming from. Galamsey is such a huge thing, and yet it is also very difficult to deal with it. Because when you hear the sums of money involved, you somersault.
Wow.
So to tell somebody not to go and do it, what are you giving him in return? The trick is not to let him taste the forbidden fruit. And he has tasted it now. So how do you pull him back? Give him an education. You have to educate him that he's killing his own children and his family. But he's seeing raw cash in his hand. So he will go into a pit. And when two of them die, they do a party and funeral the whole night. The next day, they are back in the pit. That should tell us that it is really a huge, huge problem. But it is an environmental problem as well. Talking of lifestyle and what we eat and the food that we are growing and the fact that we are losing farmland, etc., etc. So you talk of a very huge problem. And it's not 1 minute. You hit the nail. You said education. I corrected. No. Education, health, lands and mineral resources, cabinets. Everybody has to say, we are going to tackle this. Mm-hmm. And we must have, in my opinion, a serious dialogue. You see, part of the reasons why governments sometimes fail or we don't educate or talk to our people. Oh, we are going to do e-levy, so let's do it. Hello? What is the effect on the common person? Therefore, if you don't want to explain to him why, what its uses, how you are going to use it, he's not going to buy it. So you renounce it, then you say, oh, we are now going to do town hall meeting. The damage has already been done. And up to today, nobody wants to hear it. We did the same with VAT when we were bringing. Today, VAT is helping everybody. But in the end, people went for Kumikrepo and died before. So there's a history. And you would have thought others would have learned that no, we don't educate, we don't call our people, we don't speak. And it's also because of a feeling of guilt, in my humble opinion. Why? Because if I come to you, Ekem, and I say, look, we have to do this to help us do A, B, or C. And then you, Ekem, say to me, Abba, Chief, I gave you this the last time. What did you do with it? In order not to answer that question, you just say, Ekem, this is what you have to do. Because you don't want to answer the question I'm going to ask you. That is where we are. So, our leaders have to understand that if you are able to educate people and explain, even if you have done wrong, you say, look, yes, we didn't get this right. But this time we need to do A, B, or C. And we promise that people will grant, but they will understand why. But if we don't understand, and you cannot explain, then nobody takes it. And the same is applying. We have the same problem with Galamsey. The same. We just give instructions and think that it will be carried out. Call the chiefs of the area. Explain to them. Tell them this thing. Then clamp down on the private people who are acting. If you know that excavators are the ones, how many people should be allowed to bring an excavator? If you want to move an excavator from A to B, you need a certain permit. If not, so the excavator cannot move. If it is going to move, we want to know how it's going to move. When we see this water machine, you have to really tighten, but at the same time be educating, talking to people. It cannot be a one-off. It's expensive. But the price we are going to pay, now they are telling us water. If we are not careful, by 20, 30 years, we will be importing water.
Oh.
Yes. Because we are polluting our rivers. Now, the cost of water, it's not about them not getting the water. It's about cleaning the water. So the chemicals they put in, the chlorine, the alum, what they will put in or whatever to clean it has tripled, doubled some cases. So in that case, if you used to spend 100 cedis to clean water before, now you are spending 200. Who's going to pay the extra? We, the consumers. When I used to be young, we would go to play football, as you know. Mm-hmm. When we finish, we just open the tap, we use a hand, we drink the water that way. Dare your child go and do that now. We are buying water to put in our fridge so that we drink. If it's not sachet water, it's bottled water. But nobody goes to the tap and just starts drinking water. Okay. Rare.
Very true.
We've changed. Already, it's costing us. And we are doing activities that are going to cost us more. So, and it all comes down to health. So now, the number of cases we have for kidney failure in this town is incredible.
Oh, wow.
It's incredible. It's rising. And that's the ones we know. But people are dying from kidney failure and nobody is knowing about it because they can't afford the treatment. How many people can afford dialysis? People who are supposed to do dialysis 3 times a week are doing it once. Eventually it catches up and you're gone.
Let me make in the effort to wrap up, let me make a concluding statement of what you said and then ask you for a concluding statement as well. I think another thing that happens with this kidney thing I talk about is that people use all sort of preservatives.
That's correct.
For food.
Yeah.
I remember the anecdote that I have is that I used to buy fish from this woman, salted fish. Yeah. And one time I saw a bit more white content on the fish than usual. That prompted me to ask, oh, madam.
What is that?
What's on the... She was taking a powder that was supposed to repel ants and lizards. And then when she would sell, at the end of the day, when she needed to pack off and go home, she wasn't taking the produce home. She was putting it in a box under the table she was selling in. And she was putting that stuff on it to repel the ants and the, So I think that's one thing.
You haven't, we do a lot of things that are not right.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, fortunately, I can say that the FDA does or Ghana Standards Authority do a good job when they send out their people. If they come across contaminated oil or they'll embargo it immediately, and they'll stop it. And so they are doing. It's a constant battle, but they are actually winning that battle. It's not a battle that is lost.
Okay.
I don't have that fear. My fear is what we allow, which we call legitimate. So spraying your mango farm or your corn farm with insecticide or using fertilizer is legitimate. There's nothing wrong. But what is the long-term effect of this on the final product of the crop? And the way health works, it's a build-up. It's never instant. So you're eating the thing for 5 years, 10 years, and then you never get to the 60 or the 70 because all of a sudden you find you've got this problem. Nobody knows where did it come from. You've got it. So you now have to start dealing with your hypertension, your kidney failure, your diabetes, and so on and so forth. People are dealing with sugar and all manner of things. So, but on a happier note, the reason we can discuss and speak about these things is because the data is being collected. So there is light at the end of the tunnel. Anybody will tell you that 80% of treating somebody is the diagnosis. To have the right diagnosis, you need all the data. So at least we are getting the data and beginning to realize, not all, but a good sum of, that certain things are not right and we have to put certain things in place. So on that note, I have hope. It gives me hope that we have a basis to build on. And now we must spend a lot more time on the education aspect and the prevention and the well-being and less on cure, because that would be not the way we want to go.
Good. I think that serves a very good way in terms of your handover note for whoever is listening and taking up where you left off. And also as almost like a Dear Jane letter to say, okay, these are the things we should be careful of, mindful of as we move forward. So Alex, thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you too.
I hope we can have other discussions about governance.
No problem.
About other areas. I actually didn't know that you were also the defense minister. So
Deputy.
I'm going to, it's the deputy defense minister. So I'm going to do some homework on that and come at you on that level or what have you. So thanks for the time.
Thank you too.
All right.
God bless.
All right.
This podcast has been a production of Learned and Laughter. Vauxhall is a podcast which, among other topics, tackles the ways and means by in which we govern ourselves. Learned and Laughter's Vauxhall is affiliated with Empowering Good Governance magazine, an online publication to be found at www.egg magazine.net.